من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We continue on our brief reflections on the ajza of the Holy Quran. We are on the 8th juz. The eighth juz of the Holy Quran starts in Surah Al-An'am and continues on to Surah Al-A'raf. As we mentioned, Surah Al-An'am is amongst the long surahs with Surah Al-A'raf that were revealed in Mecca. So the previous surahs that we reflected on, Al-Baqarah, Al-Imran, Nisa, they were, and Al-Ma'idah, they were the Madani, longer surahs, and therefore the theme was a lot of the rules that were introduced and dealing with the hypocrites, the Jews and the Christians, and so on. In Surah Al-An'am and continuing in Surah Al-A'raf, we'll find the theme to be dealing with the core principles and responding to the arguments of the polytheists or the mushrikeen of Quraysh regarding the truthfulness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reminders of the Day of Judgment, and so on and so forth. A quick few reflections on the ayat from Surah Al-Imran, Surah Al-An'am, in this juz, in the juz number 8. In ayah 111, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّنَا نَزَّلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ وَكَلَّمَهُمُ الْمَوْتَى وَحَشَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. If we were to descend upon them the angels, and the dead people were to talk to them, and we brought for them everything, قُبُلًا, in terms of blessings, all the proofs, they would not believe إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. And why is it? Because ولكن أكثرهم يجهلون, they are ignorant. So there are multiple ways of looking at this ayah, but one of the ways to look at it is, if we are sincerely seeking knowledge, then we are more likely to accept the truth. And if we are neglectful to the process of seeking knowledge, or to the significance of seeking knowledge and improvement in our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're focused on this dunya. Many people, they don't, I don't know if any of you have heard this expression, but sometimes when you're trying to remind somebody or tell them something, they tell you, don't tell me, I'm good where I am, or what I'm dealing with is difficult enough in terms of rules and the do's and don'ts. So that may lead to a situation where a trial comes and one rejects the truth because, again, it's mostly because of convenience, and that the fact that رَضُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَاطْمَأَنُّوا بِهَا, Quran says, they're pleased with this dunya, the life in this dunya, and they were secure and felt secure, or felt comfortable with this dunya. Another ayah, another reflection, ayah 114, أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكِتَابَ مُفَصَّلًا. Then وَالَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْلَمُونَهُ أَنَّهُ مُنَزَّلٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ بِالْحَقِّ. The people of the book, the ones that we have given the book, obviously referring to the book before the Prophet, before Quran, they know for sure, يَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ مُنَزَّلٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ, that it surely is revealed from your Lord with truth. this is a reminder of the fact that the people of the book, especially around the Prophet, when they were hearing the Quran, they knew that this is a book from God. It was not a situation where they were confused about. Okay, they had all the proofs. For instance, in Surah Al-Kahf, when they wanted to know if he knows anything of what he has not been taught, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to him the story of Ashabul Kahf, and he told them. When they asked him about Yusuf alayhi salam, he told them. So they knew it was not a doubtful situation for them. Another ayah 124, again, we're in Surah Al-An'am, ayah 124. وإذا جاءتهم آية قالوا لن نؤمن حتى نؤتى مثل ما أوتي رسل الله. One of the common problems of people who denied the messengers of God is that they were arrogant and they thought, if God didn't talk to me, then why is it that he talked to him? So they said, we will not believe until we are given what the messengers of God have received. نُؤْتَى مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ رُسُلُ اللَّهِ. And the response to that is, Allahu أعلم حيث يجعل رسالته. God knows best where does he make his message, or where does he appoint his message, who does he appoint his message or send his message with. And this notion is considered a crime, a sin, a sinful notion, ajramu. They will be therefore humiliated, those who make such claims. Why? Because it's stemming from arrogance, and we will see that arrogance has no place in paradise. I believe I did mark this in one of the ayat that we'll be reflecting on, that it is not a place that paradise will not have anyone who has arrogance, will not accommodate anyone who has arrogance. In ayah 141, still in Surah Al-An'am, وهو الذي أنشأ جنات معروشات وغير معروشات والنخل والزرع مختلفا. He has given you all sorts of trees, the palm trees, the plants or the vegetables that grow short, the things that grow tall, the things that actually, the vines that grow on top of each other, or things that people have to vines that people have to make some structure for them. And they're all different in their what they produce. You put them in the same ground, they are under the same sun, you give them the same water, yet each of them gives you something different. One gives you something extremely juicy and sweet, another gives you something extremely bitter, and obviously not a fruit to eat, but you juice it and you get the oil from it. وَالزَّيْتُونَ وَالرُّمَّانَ. So different things. They're similar but not similar. They have similarities in certain areas and non-similar. And then he says, eat, kulu min thamarihi. When it gives you, eat, consume. وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ, and give the right. Here, حَقَّهُ here is where you give your zakat, whatever is the share of the poor. And do not, وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. This is repeated again, this concept of israf, or excessive use or use. Israf is a little bit different to tabdir, by the way. Tabdir is where one wastes and uses in a wasteful manner. Israf is when one is excessive. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Although one may lead to the other. Another ayah 147 in Surah Al-An'am, فَإِن كَذَّبُوكَ فَقُلْ رَبُّكُمْ ذُو رَحْمَةٍ وَاسِعَةٍ وَلَا يُرَدُّ بَأْسُهُ. We said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala often in the Quran gives us both extremes, the extreme good, extreme reward and mercy, and at the same time his wrath and his punishment. Rahmatin wasi'ah on the one hand, and then on the other hand, his wrath or his punishment cannot be blocked from the criminals. Perhaps the last reflection in Surah Al-An'am, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, Ayah 152, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not even come near the wealth of the orphans. So these two ayat, Ayah 151 and 152, you'll find that in those ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us some of the rules, some of the major things that God has put boundaries for. قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ. And you'll find that a lot of it has to do with our interactions with others. Some people think religion is just prayers, recitation, fasting, going to Hajj. This is the personal journey, but we have a responsibility towards people around us. And all of these acts of worship are what are meant to make us better in our interactions with other members of the human society. Surah Al-A'raf. Next one is Surah Al-A'raf. And in Surah Al-A'raf, again, we mentioned that this surah is a Makki surah, and it's named Al-A'raf because of certain elevations, and this is referring to the day of judgment. Although some have suggested, and this is mainly from the other schools besides the school of Ahlul Bayt, they suggest that A'raf, there are some people who are stuck on the day of judgment. They don't know which way they're going to be going, and they're on elevation supposedly. However, in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we clearly see it and have been told by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt that it is about people who are of high positions. And this is very in line with even the common understanding in this world in general, and metaphorically as well, that when you say someone up high, you're referring to someone of a good position, and these are people who recognize everyone. يعرفون كلا بسيماهم وعلى الأعراف رجال. So this is the reason of the naming of the surah. Has a lot of references to the Day of Judgment, and we said this Makki surahs, they have typically they speak of the core principles, Tawheed, the confirmation of the prophethood, confirmation of the Quran being revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also the Day of Judgment, confirming the Day of Judgment and some of the characteristics of the Day of Judgment and some of the challenges and difficulties, and how some people will be in extreme difficulties, whereas at the same time there are people who are in very good positions on the Day of Judgment. وعلى الأعراف, they are on elevations, they're in ease. They are told, some people are told, enter paradise without reckoning, بغير حساب. So it's there are both. It's not just those who face difficulty. Yes, there are many warnings about it because it is difficult and it cannot be even compared to any difficulty in this world. One of the ayat, again, Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th surah, 13, ayah number 13, قال فاهبط منها فما يكون لك أن تتكبر فيها. That's the first ayah I wanted to reflect on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces the story of Adam, the creation of Adam and the prostration for Adam from Malaika, and the conversation with Iblis. In that conversation, Iblis is commanded to descend from the garden, paradise, the Jannah that he was in, or the nearness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the ayah says, فَمَا يَكُونُ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَبَّرَ فِيهَا. In the garden of nearness to God, you have no right to have arrogance. This was the ayah I gave reference to earlier. that in paradise, people with arrogance cannot and will not be admitted to paradise. This is very important to keep in mind, so we can, inshallah, humble ourselves to deserve being admitted to paradise. The ayah 31 again in Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 31, يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا. Again, إنه لا يحب المسرفين. Same as we read in Surah Al-An'am, eat and drink, but do not be excessive. ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين. The people who get a lot of something. Nowadays, we have certain stores that people have to buy a lot. And by buying a lot, often people end up wasting and over consuming. And so we have a society of people who need to then go and treat their overconsumption. All of that is not right. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Inshallah, we'll suffice with this. We'll continue reflecting on the rest of Surah Al-A'raf as we, inshallah, reflect on Juz'u number 9, inshallah. So the next Juz'u is the 9th Juz'u, and it will be the completion or continuation of Surah Al-A'raf, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.